What is the best decision you've made while drunk? I used to deliver small airplanes as a sort of side gig. The best part for me was simply being by myself, often for days, and just enjoying leisurely flights over the US. One evening several years ago, I'd had a few too many and invited my dad to join me on a 3-4 day trip to deliver some guy's new plane from the Northwest. Disclaimer. Although I care about him, Dad can be very stressful to travel with on long trips. So the next morning I was a little annoyed with myself for doing this. Due to medical issues. That turned out to be the last vacation he ever had. And we had a great time. I'd hate to have missed that week with him. On edit. Thank you for the awards everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. We had a get together at my place a couple years ago. Just me and 3 of my classmates. One of them recently broke up with his GF and was heartbroken. We got quite drunk and they left the next morning. But said classmate came back for his charger and told me that thanks to what I've said the day before, they are getting back together with GF. I was glad obviously. But to this day I have no clue what I've told him. I was very drunk. They're still together BTW. I got really hammered one night and started missing my mom, even though I talked to her regularly, because I lived very far away so I didn't see her often. Apparently I called her and spoke to her for about an hour, according to my phone log. The next day when I called her to apologize for whatever dumb shit I said, she told me that it was the most wonderful conversation she'd ever had and that I made her feel so proud to be my mom. I have no clue what I said to her and I never had the heart to tell her that I couldn't remember the call. She died 2 years ago and I never did find out what I said to her. Not to couple with my homie after a huge mansion party, where we all got drunk. I had done it before but got some smart impulse not to this time. After I took an Uber and got home to sleep, I woke up from my alcohol-induced sleep and found out from his mom that he ended up flipping the car into a canyon. The roof caved. He broke his neck and ended up with what luckily turned out to be temporary paralysis. As thankful as I am that he's well and walking now, and just as functional a person as he once was, I'm glad I didn't take the car ride with him. Decided that maple leaves look like little hands and proceeded to high five every tree I saw. Happiest night ever. Still high five cute leaves sometimes and give myself a good chuckle. Always wondered when I'd stop being a lurker and finally be compelled to comment. This is apparently it. Close bracket. I've left, and continue to do so, a pint glass of ice on my bedside table so I can't drink it immediately. But when I wake up with that 4 AM cotton mouth thirst, big glass cold water waiting, no getting up. This is great in theory. Except for people with cats. They will absolutely get their dirty f-king paws and tongues all up in that fresh water. And potentially knock it over. F-king rodents. When I was 21 I was quite the alcoholic and I had started using cocaine quite frequently. It started to develop into an addiction as I was doing it alone at my house on a daily basis. One day I was drinking alone at home and went to the gas station to pick up some smokes. On the way back, a high school friend of mine was walking his dog, and I picked him up. He wanted to smoke some weed and so we went back to my place. He started talking about how he just got out of rehab and was telling me about how bad addiction was, all of the signs, etc. He had no clue I was using coke. I very emotionally opened up to him and ended up throwing a little less than an 8 ball into the trash. Haven't touched the shitty since. To this day the decision to go to the gas station to buy cigarettes when I was drunk was the best one I have ever made. 9 years ago stumbling to the pitta shop after the bars closed with my friends. I drunkenly ordered a falafel pitta instead of my usual. Blew my mind and changed my life. Recovered alcoholic here. I was drunk when I made the decision to ask a friend for help getting sober. Best decision I ever made. Not just while drunk. I wrote "Get with the cookie delivery guy" as my entry on the goals for spring semester list we posted on the wall in my college apartment. Then we invited the cookie delivery guy up for a party. That was almost 8 years ago. We got married last October. I booked a vacation to New Orleans at 3 AM while blackout drunk. I got awesome deals on airfare and a nice hotel. Even booked it to perfectly fit into my work schedule. I have no idea how I pulled it off. But it was like getting a gift from a stranger. Dude. My last 3 vacations and skydiving trips were all planned completely hammered. The first time was so successful I almost believe I planned better. Since July I've been skydiving twice. Kayaking. Saw all the San Diego Zoo. Got a sunburn. Went camping. Went fishing. Visited old friends across the country and tripped mushrooms. If I plan sober I worry about money and all the legwork to pull it off. To quit drinking. Another night of embarrassing myself forced me to sleep in the back of my car because I was no longer welcome at the place I intended. I was tired of it. I said I'll never do it again. And 5 years later I haven't so far. Hosted a massive college house party and I was extremely intoxicated and made the decision to steal my roommate's Bacardio and mix with orange juice. Definitely should have stopped at this point. I don't remember much. But I remember pouring about a shot of orange juice and filling the tall glass with rum until it became clear. I woke up the next morning next to the very large empty Bacardi bottle and feeling wonderful, however remorseful that I stole from my best friend. I profusely apologized that evening, when friend finally recovered and committed to replacing said bottle, but he broke out into an uncontrollable laughter, to the extent it caused him to dry heave. The bottle was destined to join our many decorative liquor bottles and had been filled with water accordingly. I never lived down my night of binge drinking Bacardi H2O. Fuck my now husband on 30 years. Weirdly I met my ex stone cold sober. I think drunk me might have better taste in men. I came onto my now husband when I was blind drunk. He texted me the next day to ask if there was any truth to it and I said yes. In vino veritas. Bought a sweet dinosaur print shirt from a dodgy Chinese vendor. Only read the reviews afterwards and it seemed that I was most likely to receive something entirely different if I got anything at all. 2 months later what turns up? My awesome dinosaur shirt. Happy days. I was dating this girl. She was a solid 10/10. Absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. She was dumb and boring. But incredibly good looking. I held on to her for 3 years before I couldn't deal with the boring conversations. When my little brother died she texted me OMG RIP and so I got drunk and told her to piss off. I'm a very cautious person so any decision I make is finalized while drunk. I've already made up my mind sober but a drink or two makes me pull the trigger. I bought a one-way plane ticket out of the country. The next day, after sobering up, I decided to just roll with it. I quit my job as an engineer, broke up with my significant other, and ended up a much happier person because of it. This is awesome. Which country was that? I did something similar too. I'm from France and after one hell of a night we woke up in Germany. I'm still unsure how we got there. But it was a little town called Zweibrücken that I've never heard of before. I fell in love with that place and moved there for a couple of years. I still don't recollect how we ended up there. To move back home. We moved around so much that I didn't really have a hometown but the place I ended up graduating high school from felt more like home than anywhere. I moved out of state after high school. Became severely depressed. Lost my job and my dog. And had literally nothing in life left to look forward to. I drank a fifth of Jim Beam one night after having a bad depressive episode and felt more homesick than I had in my entire life. I decided then and there to move back. I got up with one of my old friends. He helped me get a decent job for a 19-year-old. We ended up dating. And now we've been married for almost 14 years. Life has turned out okay. You know the schnapps with the gold flakes in them? I spit them out and save them. In 20 more years I'll have about 1/16th of an ounce of gold. And cirrhosis. I ordered tap shoes one night after not owning a pair in 15 years. Now it's my go-to activity between conference calls, and sometimes during them on mute. My ankles feel stronger, so that's good. I went to a party in college and came home with a cat. I was petting the house owner's cat and he asked if I wanted a kitten. They had found him outside and he was in rough shape. He is now 7 years old and appropriately named Milson. Not ruining my relationship to the girl I'm best friends with since kindergarten because I decided to stop trying to get in bed with her. Hit for the cycle. Got a value menu item from each of McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's and Burger King. It was glorious. Edit. Each item, if I remember correctly, McChicken, Doritos Locos Taco Cool Ranch, JBC and onion rings. Not me, but my friend has some tech savvy friends and years ago he bought a ton of Bitcoin in a blackout when the price was around $5 each. He forgot that happened until he stumbled onto the old hard drive years later when Bitcoin was very high. He's beyond rich now. There was some tech writer who did an article on Bitcoin in the early days and he mined a bunch as part of researching it. Several years later when the price went through the roof he remembered that he had some but ultimately realized that the hard drive had been tossed. Somewhere in a landfill in the UK is an old bit of computer hardware worth a small fortune. When I drunk drove. Got pulled up and lost my license for 2.5 years. It's simultaneously my worst and best decision. Worst for obvious reasons. Best because it was the final slap to the face I needed to wake up to myself and my serious drinking issues and suicidal ideations. Now I'm sober. Off the piss. My depression has finally FK'd off. And I'm getting my license back at the end of January. That poor decision may well have saved my, or someone else's, life in the long run. My friend and I were drunk when we decided to do a 2,000-mile motorcycle trip. We did it a few months later and had a blast. We now have a rule that if we both agree to a ridiculous trip while drinking, the agreement must be honored. Only about 3 beers and so not super drunk but drunk enough. Spinning records at my friend's house. End of the 90s, it was cool, I swear. He had a bunch of people over. People were sort of filtering in and out of the room in the basement where the turntables were set up. At some point I looked up and everyone had left the room except this one redhead girl. Instant decision to stop what I was doing and introduce myself. 21 years later. Hell yeah, I did. About 4-ish years ago I was drunk browsing OkCupid and ran across the profile of a guy I had seen many times before but thought was way out of my league. I sent him a silly message and went to bed. I had forgotten when I woke up. Got a message alert and was shocked to see it was him. We've been married for 1.5 years. And in 2 weeks we are welcoming a little girl into the world. 10/10 would drunk message the hot guy again. Last year around this time I got blackout drunk on Irish car bombs and did all my Christmas shopping online, which at that point I had been against doing, and mostly everyone loved their gifts. The ones who weren't too impressed were the ones that received a bobblehead figurine that looked just like me. I guess I figured the best gift I could give was more of me. Some months prior I had a big fight with some of my best friends and I was very lonely, and after a while we had a school trip to the mountains where we stayed in a hotel and I drank so much that I ended up crying on a shoulder of one of my friends and we put our differences aside. Edit. Thanks for the 7 upvotes. Edit 2. Wow, thanks so much for the 46 upvotes. Edit 3. I really appreciate the upvotes, I really make a comment, so thanks to everyone who upvoted. Edit 4. OMG 100 upvotes, thank you so much everyone. Signed up for a foreign TV commercial. I didn't have the time, free, new job, or a necessary passport and the production company pushed me to sort those things regardless, completely out of my comfort zone. When we were flown out for filming, I met the girl of my dreams and now live in that country. I never take risks. I thought I'd grow old in the village I grew up in. Having drunken unprotected sex with my wife in our room at the Luxor in Vegas resulted in the birth of my youngest son 9 months later. I don't think I could love anyone in the world more than I love him. Best drunk decision ever. An Amazon box was delivered to me with a SNES Classic. Had so much fun with it. No memory of ordering it. When I checked my email it was ordered at like 3 AM on a Saturday. Thanks drunk me. I finally got to play through Super Metroid. Came home from the bar at 2:30 one night and seasoned a pork shoulder and popped it in the oven before I went to bed. Woke up at 8 to the most amazing smell and a perfectly cooked pork shoulder to pull apart and devour for breakfast. 10/10 would do again. Edit. Also met my wife at said bar. So that's up there too. A few days after a night of heavy drinking, I woke up to a text and email from my bank saying there was a debit withdrawal for $1,000 initiated on the day I was drunk. Sober me had been meaning to open a Roth IRA. Drunk me decided to get it done. Still scared the shit out of me at first. Not so much a decision as it was an accident. I was sending a FWB video over FB Messenger of me standing over my phone camera jerking off, her request, when I accidentally sent it to a girl I had been crushing on with the same first name. I nearly had a heart attack while sending 50 watch messages in the span of 15 seconds. She sent back her phone number with a smiley face. Early 2000s. Coworker drunkenly bid on an eBay auction. Woke up the next day to a congratulatory email stating he'd made the winning bid of $100. It was an 8x10 autographed and framed photo of Mr. T. He had no regrets. My brother ordered a turkey fryer and didn't even know what it was when it showed up. But that thing has made many delicious turkeys ever since and I think that was an incredibly drunk purchase. I was on the way home after the bar and I had this huge gut feeling that I needed to turn my Uber around at 2 AM when I had work at 6 AM to meet up with my friends at a party. I met my boyfriend of 2 years that night. Made a move on a very shy, cute boy I'd had my eye on at a few other get-togethers. Going on almost 17 years together. Best decision of my life. Thanks. Booze. Also I'm 14 months sober now. Booze no longer had any good decision making power for me. Close bracket. So at the time my friend was heartbroken cause his girlfriend just broke up with him. I suggested we should drink it off. We were so beaten up that I didn't remember what happened. The next day my friend thanked for the advice and I was like, what advice? Apparently that I said things like, don't worry there are more girls out there, just forget that hoe and hug your bro. I don't remember a f-king thing. But a month after that he got a new girlfriend. The end. I was absolutely plastered off a bottle of Jameson in my final year of university and at a fresh week pub night and I drunkenly told my massive crush that it didn't matter what happened. We were going to end up together one day. She was very much not interested at the time. We're now happily married and have been together for nearly 10 years. Hid my money from myself in Vegas. I was there for 2 nights and did pretty decent night 1. Night 2 I blacked out a little bit before bed. Next day I wake up and I'm short about $120. I was so upset thinking I must have gambled it away before going to my room. On the drive home we hit a zone where we had no signal for radio or phones. So I started looking through my photos to kill time. I find a video of myself in my room looking at the camera greeting myself with, "Hey dipshit. I know you're blacked out right now. So I'm going to save you from yourself. Here's $120 non-spending money and I put it at the bottom of your bag." Double quote. I pulled out my bag and sure as shit found that money. Made the hangover a little more bearable. For whatever reason I get hella good at math drunk. Like spooky good that I showed up drunk for my math diploma exam. Ended up with 94 but not my best decision. My best decision was entering this math night at bar, cash prize of 10 grand and your girl needed the money so show up with a few co-workers and other friends, start the night with a couple drinks before math begins. I start off okay ordering more drinks to my table, then my answers started getting better, people are starting to catch on, the booze is giving me knowledge, someone else decided to try this trick, it's worked for them so now they are slamming, we are fighting over questions but what he didn't realize is I stopped, he drank himself under the table and I won. We were getting drunk and one of my friends was trying to come up with a way to put our drinks on his company card. I realized that since I was working for a newspaper at the time, we could call it an interview and thus a business expense. Side note. My dad does this all of the time. He's a farmer, so if we talk about tractors for a couple of minutes, he can get a tax rebate through his business. Close bracket. We got away with it because later that night, the dude was blackout drunk and accidentally booked a flight to New York on the same card. Suddenly, a $100 bar tab didn't look so bad. And no, I don't think he ever got to New York. Me and a friend decided to leave a party to go to our old school and climb to the top of the building. We just drank a bottle of tequila, so we weren't at our finest. It was surprisingly easy and, even more surprisingly, no one saw us. After some time doing stupid shit, we returned to the party and turns out that police went by and asked for our friend's data. I've never been so glad of trespassing private property. My teacher had sexually harassed me and was grooming me. The school didn't want to fire him. Sober me said, "Tomorrow, we're going to go to school and kill him, break a bottle on his head." I went home early and went out and stole a case of Smirnoff Ice and proceeded to drink it. I was still stressed out. When I eventually got home, I was drunk as hell, thinking about the whole situation, and I decided to steal my dad's car. And where did I go? The psychiatric ward. I spent 26 hours in the ER when I finally got to bed. It was a great decision, because they got the school to fire him. I'm glad I did it and didn't kill him. I went out for drinks with my friend of 4 years so we could cheer ourselves up after we had both been dumped by our long-term partners. We got pretty drunk and he kept pretending he was going to kiss me, then saying, "Haha, I'm just joking. I wouldn't kiss you." I decided I wasn't going to take this cheek. So the next time he done it, I grabbed him and kissed him. We've been together now for 5 years in January and I've honestly never been so happy. Not only is he my partner, but he's my best friend and we make a fantastic team. I've never known or felt love like this. A friend of mine and his dad were drunk eBay browsing. His dad came across a Jaguar that was made up to look like the Austin Powers car. The price was good. Car was super clean and low miles. His dad makes a bid on it. Wins. About a week later the transporter arrives. It was the actual movie car with certificates of authenticity and signatures. His dad regularly drives it and takes it to car events.